Looking for magic cards? At flipsidegaming.com you can now use the promo code LVD to get a 10% discount on orders over $10 while supporting the channel at the same time. Hello and welcome to another episode of Wacky Wednesday, a weekly series where we explore wacky deck ideas in both Standard and Modern, and this week we're taking a look at a Sarkhan's Unsealing deck in Standard. Sarkhan's Unsealing, a 4-mana red enchantment that says, whenever you cast a creature spell with power 4, 5 or 6, then the Unsealing deals 4 damage to any target. And if you cast a creature spell with power 7 or greater, then the Unsealing deals 4 damage to each opponent and each creature and planeswalker they control. So a very powerful enchantment that combines nicely with big green creatures. There's lots of different ways to build a Sarkhan's Unsealing deck. You can go deeper into red for Rekindling Phoenix and Glorybringer. You can go the dinosaur route with Regisaur Alpha and Ripjaw Raptor. Instead, what we did is we went deeper into green, so we could play all the mono-green creatures like Steelleaf Champion and top off our curve with Ghalta Primal Hunger, which will trigger the second mode on Sarkhan's Unsealing for maximum damage. So let's take a look at our entire deck list, starting out with our 1-drops, where we have 3 copies of Blossoming Defense, a 1-mana instant giving our creature +2/+2 and hexproof until end of turn, so nice bump spell that can also protect our creatures from spot removal spells. Then we have 4 copies of Llanowar Elves to help us ramp out our Sarkhan's Unsealing and all the big creatures in the deck. Then we have 3 copies of Heart of Kiran, which doesn't trigger the Sarkhan's Unsealing, so it's a little bit of a non-bow with it, but it does combine nicely with all the big creatures that go in a Sarkhan's Unsealing deck, since we get a 2-mana 4/4 vehicle with Flying and Vigilance. Crew cost is 3, so if we tap a total of 3 or more power, we get to crew the vehicle and attack or block with it. And we can also remove loyalty counters from planeswalkers to crew the Heart of Kiran, which can come up in sideboarded games. But the Heart of Kiran is just mainly here to help us attack with the Heart of Kiran the turn we play one of our big creatures, kind of like giving the creature we just played haste in a way, and can also help us ramp out a Ghalta ahead of schedule, since the Heart of Kiran can add 4 extra power to help us play the Ghalta. Then we also have 4 copies of Servant of the Conduit as another mana ramp creature that can also generate red mana for the Sarkhan's Unsealing. We have 2 copies of Rhonas the Indomitable, which is also great in this deck as a 3-mana 5/5 indestructible Death Touch God. And Rhonas can only attack or block if we control a creature with power 4 or greater, but that's perfect in a Sarkhan's Unsealing deck since we're going to have a lot of those creatures. And of course, Rhonas also triggers the Unsealing itself. And for 2 and a green, we can also give a creature +2/+0 and trample until end of turn, so nice ability in any green deck. Next up we have 2 copies of Thrashing Brontodon, a 3-mana 3/4 that we can for 1 mana sacrifice to destroy target artifact or enchantment. So not the best combo with the Sarkhan's Unsealing, but it does crew our Heart of Kiran and can just help us deal with problematic artifacts or enchantments like Godfarer's Gift strategies. Then we have the full 4 copies of Steelleaf Champion, triple green for a 5/4 that can be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less, so works very nicely after playing a turn 1 Llanowar Elves, helps us trigger the Sarkhan's Unsealing and adds a lot of power for Ghalta. Then of course we have our full 4 copies of Sarkhan's Unsealing, which also works quite nicely against counter spells more than you might expect, since even if the creature gets countered we still get the trigger since it happens on cast and not on enter the battlefield. But against most control decks we're probably going to be boarding out the Sarkhan's Unsealing since there's not too many creatures we want to target with it, but as a main deck card it's not a dead card, unlike many removal spells against controlling decks, since we can also just deal 4 damage to the opponent or to one of their planeswalkers. Then we have 4 copies of Vine Mare, a 4-mana 5/3 creature with hexproof that can be blocked by black creatures, so it dodges all spot removal spells and also matches up nicely against the Scarab God with all his tokens that are black, and also can be blocked by all those annoying Death Touch creatures that you might see out of the sideboard. Then we have 3 copies of Verdurous Gearhulk, a 5-mana 4/4 with trample that when he enters the battlefield we get to distribute 4 +1/+1 counters among creatures we control, so putting those counters on a Vine Mare is a pretty safe investment and also helps us a lot with casting Ghalta, which is our last creature here, a 12-mana 12/12 with trample, but Ghalta costs X mana less to cast, where X is the total power of creatures we control, so if the total power is 10 or more, then Ghalta only costs double green for a 12/12 with trample that will trigger the second mode on Sarkhan's Unsealing, which is quite a bargain. Then taking a quick look at our mana base, we have a total of 16 untapped green sources for turn 1 Llanowar Elves, including 11 forests, 3 Aether Hubs, which can also make a red mana for the Sarkhan's Unsealing, and 2 copies of Hashep Oasis, which we can also sacrifice to make one of our creatures bigger until end of turn. And then we have the full 8 red-green dual lands, 4 copies of Rootbound Crag, which enters battlefield untapped if we control a mountain or a forest, and then 4 copies of Sheltered Thicket, which counts as both a mountain and a forest, always comes into play tapped, but we can also cycle it for 2 mana if we're floating out a bit. That's the main deck. Now let's take a quick look at the sideboard, where we have 2 copies of Shaper Sanctuary, which is great against removal-heavy decks, where we get to draw a card whenever the opponent targets one of our creatures with a spell or ability. We have 2 copies of Nature's Way for when we need our creatures to fight some of the opponent's creatures, so it gives us a little bit of removal in matchups where we need it. We have a single copy of Prowling Serpopard against counterspell-heavy decks, 2 copies of Aethersphere Harvester against the aggressive red decks to help us gain some life. Then we have 2 more copies of Thrashing Brontodon if we need to deal with artifacts or enchantments. Then 2 copies of Lifecrafter's Bestiary, which is for the grindy control matchups where we get to draw a lot of extra cards with it. Then 1 of each Nissa, Vital Force, and Vivien Reid, which also shine in the more controlling matchups where the opponent's going to have trouble dealing with our planeswalkers. And then 2 copies of Carnage Tyrant, which also shines against counterspell-heavy decks as an uncounterable threat with trample and hexproof, so also very difficult for the opponent to deal with once it resolves. So that's the deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Alright, we're on the draw, and this hand's very awkward because both our creatures don't actually trigger the Unsealing, but I think I'm gonna keep anyway, and then hope to draw some more fatties. Well, another Unsealing. If we ever draw a creature with power 4 or greater, we're gonna be in a great spot. Until then, we're gonna have to wait and see. Turn 2 freebooters, gonna take a look at our beautiful hand and take one of our Unsealings. Play a land, say go. Opponent appears to be on mono black. We're just gonna run out a Brontodon here. And Gearhulk was definitely a good draw. So we get to curve Unsealing into Gearhulk. Hope they don't have another discard spell here. Field of Ruin, that's fine. And Chupacabra killing Brontodon, that's actually not the end of the world. Alright, time to jam the Unsealing. Keep Hashep Oasis in hand to play around the Field of Ruin. And next turn it's party time. Ooh, Panharmonicon. That's a spicy one. Huh, so this is interesting. We can play Gearhulk and then deal 4 to something, but it might be safer to play Brontodon first and maybe deal with the Panharmonicon. The sad part about playing Brontodon and keeping up mana to kill Panharmonicon is that we don't get to play the Servant, which I would like to do given the Gearhulk, but I think we're gonna play it safe here since our late game with double Unsealing should be pretty powerful, so I don't see a reason to take any unnecessary risks. So our opponent might force the issue with something that triggers Panharmonicon, but we're not forced to use it right away since everything the opponent plays in mono black is going to be sorcery speed anyway. And there's Sky Sovereign. If the Sky Sovereign resolves, the opponent gets to deal 6 damage, killing Brontodon, but we can respond by killing the Sky Sovereign. Or we can respond by killing the Panharmonicon. So if our opponent has another Chupacabra, it doesn't really matter that they have the Panharmonicon in play. Same with something like Freebooter. If they have a Gonti, that could be annoying. I'm just trying to think of all the enter the battlefield abilities they could have. I think the Sky Sovereign is just the bigger problem here, since it just kills us in a couple attacks, whereas the Panharmonicon may or may not be very good. So by playing the Sky Sovereign main phase, our opponent can now attack for 3, as opposed to just 1. Alright, Vine Mare is a nice pickup. Has hexproof, so another Chupacabra is not an issue. So I think I actually like playing Vine Mare over Gearhulk here, since it's more difficult for the opponent to deal with. And then we'll kill the Freebooter, which frees up our Unsealing. So next turn we could go Unsealing, if we draw land, also Servant, and then play Gearhulk with 2 Unsealings in play. Or we could just jam the Gearhulk, put some counters on the Vine Mare, and go to town. Vine Mare definitely great against the mono black deck, as you can imagine. Although Dusk Legion Zealot plus Panharmonicon, it's a pretty nice combo too. And another one. Alright, opponent's going off. Heart of Kiran the draw. So we could just play Gearhulk, put 4 counters on Vine Mare, deal 4 damage to the opponent, put them to 12, attack for 9, which puts them to 3 life. Don't hate that. And there doesn't appear to be any immediate risk of dying on the way back, so I don't mind the aggressive line here. The other option was playing another Unsealing first, but this seems better. Alright, so our opponent's gonna need some sort of artifact to block with, like another Sky Sovereign would be pretty decent, as it can shoot down the Gearhulk and then still block the Vine Mare potentially, but it would be chump blocking the Vine Mare. So I think putting all the counters on Vine Mare makes sense. If our opponent's playing Doomfall, then they could potentially kill the Gearhulk and then Doomfall the Vine Mare as an answer. Aethersphere Harvester keeps him alive for sure. And another one. Alright, so our opponent can double block Vine Mare, but that still doesn't really help. And Gearhulk gets to stay in play, which is nice. And we drew another one. Well, that's gonna make things pretty straightforward. Just cast Gearhulk and deal 4 damage to our opponents, and the Harvesters don't really matter. Alright, that does it. So on to sideboarding against Mono Black Panharmonicon. Feels like Brontodon is a good inclusion. Vivien as well. And then Carnage Tyrant could be decent against all the removal spells. Do we want Sanctuary? Do we want Bestiary? Those are the cards I'm less certain about. And then what do we take out? I think we like the Blossoming Defenses, all the ramp. Could see taking out Rhonas. If our opponent kills all our other creatures, Rhonas is pretty bad. Could actually see cutting some number of Gearhulks, since they're pretty weak against Chupacabras, and at that point cutting a Ghalta makes sense. Maybe could actually cut 2 Ghaltas and keep in an extra Gearhulk since it's such a nice combo with Vine Mare. Don't know if we want to bring in Bestiary or Sanctuary. Yeah, I think I'll try this for now, since the Sanctuary and Bestiary are a lot better when the opponent's not really trying to kill us, but our opponent with main deck Sky Sovereigns is definitely trying to kill us. And this hand seems acceptable. We've got Vine Mare, which is our best card in the matchup, and double Brontodon, which I imagine is decent as well. Turn to Aetherborn, a very good card against green decks normally, but Vine Mare kind of ignores it. So we'll take 2, and then we get to cast a Vine Mare here. Well, never mind. They get to take the Vine Mare out of our hand. So I guess we'll be casting a Brontodon instead. Yeah, Doomfall's definitely one of the better answers to Vine Mare, both when it's in play as a single creature or out of our hand. So do we attack for 2 or do we keep up Blossoming Defense? Next turn is the Chupacabra turn, but we also want to kind of try and raise this Aetherborn. I think we're fine trading Brontodon for the Aetherborn, so I think we're fine attacking for 2 and hoping they don't have a Chupacabra. And then next turn we can go Brontodon plus defense, which is pretty mana efficient too. Opponent offers a trade, so that's an indication that they might have an artifact they want to protect here, but I think we're fine with the trade. And there's Gonti, yep. Another creature that Vine Mare is very good against. Alright, I'm less excited about trading Brontodon with Gonti. I think we're just cycling this Thicket, hoping to find something like a Heart of Kiran. More Brontodons instead. And Gonti's gonna stay back. And Steel Leaf Champion to draw. I don't think we want to trade Brontodon for Gonti, even though it would open up an attack with the Servant. I think we can just play the Steel Leaf and start attacking with the Steel Leaf past Gonti. And then keep the Brontodon around for now. There's definitely a lot of cards our opponent could have found with Gonti that aren't very good in the opponent's deck. Sarkhan's Unsealing doesn't appear to do much. Ghalta's pretty difficult to cast for them. An attack with Gonti either indicates they have a second Gonti or they have a Bontu's Last Reckoning incoming. I think we're fine taking it in case that it's another Gonti, since I don't really want to trade any of our creatures. And sure, if they have the Reckoning, they got 2 free points in, who cares? So that works. And Freebooter to take the defense. Well, at least we're both down to almost no cards. Opponent has 1 card and 1 hidden Gonti card, and Heart of Kiran was definitely a good draw. Get to go hard into Brontodon. Opponent doesn't get to untap, and they don't get to fatal push anything. And then we can start attacking with the Heart of Kiran. Ooh, hello. So we have a few options here. We can crew Heart of Kiran with the Brontodon, put some counters on the Heart of Kiran itself. That's only weak against Fatal Push specifically. Or we can play Gearhulk, put the counters between Brontodon and Gearhulk, and then crew the Heart of Kiran, so we can attack with both the Heart and the Brontodon this turn. I think I'm fine going heavy on counters on the Heart of Kiran here. It dodges cast down, so it has to be Fatal Push specifically to kill it. But it dodges all the sorcery speed removal, like the Chupacabra, like the Bontu's Last Reckoning. So I don't mind going all in here and hoping to dodge a Fatal Push. Alright, so I've got an 8/8 Heart of Kiran, 2 creatures to crew it with. Opponent with just an If Near Dead lands, and our opponent scoops it up. Alright, so they can't deal with the giant Heart of Kiran. So that's gonna do it, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw, and I don't think we can mulligan a hand with 2 lands, an Accelerator, and an Unsealing with creatures we can potentially cast. Opponent on double planes into a Ajani's Pridemates, so some sort of life gain deck. Alright, if we can draw some lands here, the Unsealing should be pretty powerful. If it can kill the Pridemate before it gets too large here. And another Pridemate. And our opponent doesn't even offer the trade since they value their Pridemate so highly. As it turns out, we value our Servant also pretty highly, and we'll have to use our energy on a Steel Leaf champion. And hope to draw some lands. Alright, there's a Shield Mare, that's fine. So we're facing some 3/3 Ajani's Pridemates. Alright, Aether Hub's nice. So now we get to drop the Unsealing, which is gonna hopefully be able to kill those Pridemates before they get too big. And we've got 2 champions, although only 1 energy, and we can't cast both champions if we don't draw more lands here. There's some green mana in there as well. And that's for Shalai. That's okay, we'll just kill you first. Alright, Forest was good, so could even play Verdurous Gearhulk here if we want to. Let's see, can we actually go Brontodon into Ghalta here? 8, 9, 10, we actually can, wow. That's sweet. Brontodon, Ghalta, blow up your board. Seems pretty good here. And get in for 5. Alright, we got to live the dream with the Unsealing here. It's not gonna get any better than this. Don't really see how our opponent comes back from this. And yep, our opponent has seen enough. Don't know if we have much we want to sideboard here. This matchup is mostly about being the player that has the largest creatures on the board, and our deck is pretty good at doing that. Maybe Blossoming Defense is not at its best here. Opponent's gonna be light on interaction, and I could see Vivien being okay against those flyers, and maybe we want Nature's Way to be able to interact with their creatures potentially. Yeah, this makes sense. Don't think we need Carnage Tyrant. Alright, this hand could definitely use a forest, but I don't think we can mulligan since Ghalta seems to be pretty important in this matchup. So we're looking at a turn 2 Llanowar Elves into turn 3 Servants. And Ajani's Welcome is gonna help them grow their Ajani's Pridemates. Alright, Forest is a good draw, so now we can go Servant of the Conduit over Llanowar Elves. And next turn drop Steel Leaf Champion alongside Llanowar Elves, which sets up our Ghalta nicely. There's Ajani's Pridemates, gonna be a 3/3 right away. Ooh, Vivien Reid is also nice. So let's go Steel Leaf into Llanowar Elves. Sarkhan's Unsealing would have been great here too, potentially. Alright, opponent's gonna have a 5/5 Pridemate. So we could play Verdurous Gearhulk. We could even play Ghalta here if we wanted to. I suppose Gearhulk is slightly better, since that way we can make our champion big enough to make a profitable attack here, and that still leaves us with a lot of good leftovers to play Ghalta next turn. So how big do we want to make the Steel Leaf? If we make it into a 9/8, maybe that's too much. So maybe making it 7 toughness is enough here. And then put one on the Gearhulk, so it can still potentially block Pridemate if they don't gain life on the way back. And this way, if they have removal for the champion at least, we keep another 5 power creature to help us play Ghalta. So our opponent takes 8 down to 17. I don't expect to be able to block the Ajani's Pridemate here, but there's a chance. And our opponent doesn't even attack. Alright, that's good for us. And a Nature's Way, wow. So we can play a 2-mana Ghalta, and then use Nature's Way. Let Ghalta fight the Pridemate. This way we don't risk getting blown out by some sort of removal spell. And then get in with Steel Leaf and Gearhulk. Next turn we'll have to be careful to play around Settle the Wreckage, but that's about it. Alright, Seal Away, that's fine. That's why we played our Ghalta main phase. I doubt our opponent's playing Fumigate, but you never know. So that's also a card that should be on our radar. So there's a 4th land, so now we need to be careful about Settle the Wreckage. And land was a great draw, since now we can free up our Steel Leaf champion with Vivien, potentially. And this also doesn't commit an extra creature into a Fumigate. So if we attack with both Gearhulk and Ghalta, that's bad against Settle. If we just attack with Ghalta, that's bad against the Seal Away. We're also not presenting lethal necessarily, since our opponent can chump block, so attacking with just Ghalta, despite the possibility of Settle the Wreckage, feels bad here. And given the other Gearhulk in hand, I think we're fine attacking with both. And we'll see if they have the Settle here. It looks like they do. Alright, fair enough. So we'll get 2 forests. Still don't hate our spot, since we get to follow up with Vivien. Or we could just play another Gearhulk, since now that they played Settle, it's less likely that they have a Fumigate as well. Alright, let's just Gearhulk it up. And then next turn we could go Vivien plus Ghalta. And where do we put the counters? Have to take a potential Lara Dawnbringer into account, but we can also shoot it with Vivien. So how about making them both 5/5s? Seems fine. And say go. Another Ajani's Pridemate, that's fine. Alright, time to play a 2-mana Ghalta. And then we can attack with both. I'm fine trading a 5/5 with the Pridemate here. Opponent instead just chumps. And then we'll play Vivien and start plussing. I don't think we need to minus on the Seal Away quite yet. And the Ajani's Welcome doesn't really bother me. So let's just look for more creatures. I guess we'll go with the Vine Mare. Our opponent needs another Settle the Wreckage, but then we can just leverage Vivien Reid. And yep, our opponent scoops it up. Awesome, so got the perfect Sarkhan's Unsealing in the first game, and just managed to curve out in the second one. So on to the next one. Alright, we're on the play. And yeah, I think I'll risk it here. We've got our Sheltered Thicket to cycle, since we have Aether Hub and Servant to make red mana for the Unsealing, to help us find a threat. So I think I'm okay keeping the Thicket in hand, so that we can cycle it. There's a chance it comes back to bite us, if they kill the Servant for example, but our opponent leads with turn 1 Hashep Oasis into Llanowar Elves, so it could be some sort of mirror match. Well, we found our threat here in Steel Leaf Champion, which is nice. And in the mirror match, the Unsealing should be pretty powerful. And they're on the black-green version with Greenbelt Rampager. Won't be able to keep it in play yet. Alright, here's hoping they don't have a Thrashing Brontodon for the Unsealing. And then next turn we get to jam Steel Leaf Champion. Another tapped Woodland Cemetery. Into a Thrashing Brontodon, but we get the chance to kill it before it can destroy the Unsealing. And we'll add a Llanowar Elves as well. And then attack for 2. And then hope to keep drawing into more creatures, essentially. Can still cycle our Thicket. So the Hashep Oasis not being a forest definitely mattered here, otherwise the Cemetery comes into play untapped, and they get to blow up the Unsealing, and our opponent just packs it in. Can't beat the Unsealing. Alright, so how do we board in the mirror? Against a black version, Blossoming Defense can still be useful. Opponent might also be bringing in more disenchant effects after seeing the Unsealing. I do like Nature's Way, since it can catch us back up. I guess I can see cutting another Blossoming Defense, just keeping the 1 copy. And there's other cards definitely to consider, but I don't think I want to sideboard too much. Alright, I don't hate this. I've got a turn 3 Steel Leaf champion, turn 4 Steel Leaf with a removal spell. Turn 2 Scrap Heap Scrounger. Alright, so now that we drew another forest, I think I'm okay playing forest and then cycling the thicket end of turn, as opposed to playing a tap land, since we probably won't need all the mana. So down to 17 we go. And a Thorn Lieutenant, that's acceptable. Let's cycle the thicket. And there's the Unsealing, alright. And another land for the opponent. So both Champion and Thrashing Brontodon die to a Blossoming Defense from the opponent if they attack next turn. So I think I'm fine playing the Brontodon, since I would rather keep the Steel Leaf Champion later. And then next turn we're just jamming the Unsealing, hoping they don't have their own Brontodon, and then go from there. Opponent does attack with both, so we would be trading for a Blossoming Defense here. I think that's fine. And then we might as well prevent the 3 damage as opposed to 2 damage. Yep, there's a Blossoming Defense. Into another Scrap Heap. Into a Llanowar Elves. But our opponent's almost empty-handed, so the chances of them having Brontodon are pretty slim. And double Steel Leaf is going to stabilize us nicely with the Unsealing in play. They're also missing black mana. Oof, and they had the Brontodon as their last card. Blows up the Unsealing. Alright, that's unfortunate. We do still get to Steel Leaf into Nature's Way. So let's just kill a Scrap Heap. Say go. And our opponent still has the Hashep Oasis. So yeah, we were actually forced to kill the Scrap Heap there, otherwise Hashep Oasis would have been lethal. And our opponent is going for the Hashep Oasis activation on Thorn Lieutenant. Attacks with everyone, so this is now a 5-6, meaning we have to chum block it, otherwise we're dead. Yep, there's not much else we can do here. So we're down to 2, and Forest is not going to do it, since we can play Steel Leaf. I guess we make our opponents go through the motions here, since they might play around instant speed removal, in which case they might not attack with everyone. But if they just send everyone, we're dead. Alright, so just drew a few too many lands, and the Brontodon just in time to kill the Unsealing definitely didn't go in our favor. Alright, so we're dead. So time for game 3. Do we change anything? Could consider the Harvester after seeing the opponent with a very low curve, but it still dies to the Brontodon, so don't even know how good it is. Vine Mare doesn't really match up well against Scrap Heap, but it is a way for us to trigger the Unsealing, and I think we want to keep as many ways of triggering the Unsealing as possible. Maybe cutting 1 Heart of Kiran for 1 Harvester is fine. Yeah, we'll try this. Would like to be on the play. And yep, this is an easy keep. Turn 3 Unsealing, turn 4 Vine Mare. Hope they don't have Brontodon. And they do have the turn 1 Llanowar Elves, which does mean they could have a Brontodon next turn. Still gonna play Servant over Llanowar Elves. Alright, let's see if they have the Dinosaur here to mess with our plans. Instead it's a Rhonas. Suppose they could still play Brontodon and sacrifice it next turn. But we picked up another Unsealing, which is nice. Basically comes down whether or not they had acceleration on turn 1 or 2 in order to play the Brontodon. Alright, there's a Brontodon. Kill Unsealing. But at least they're not attacking us. Another Llanowar Elf to draw. So if we play a second Unsealing, then if we don't draw land, we're unable to play the Vine Mare next turn. While if we play the Vine Mare now, 7 power, still pretty far away from Ghalta. I think we just run it back and then hope to draw land for Vine Mare next turn. So it's actually funny, had we played Llanowar Elves instead of Servant, this issue would not have come up, since we could have just kept making mana and the Duress is gonna miss. So pretty happy we played the Unsealing last turn. Maybe a little bit too reactive from the opponent, but they did see Nature's Way as well as the Unsealing, so it's not totally out of the question to bring in Duress, but I still don't really like it. And opponent just pumping Llanowar Elves with Rhonas, attacks us for 3. That's acceptable. And we didn't get her on the land, but we get to play Heart of Kiran which is still a decent consolation prize. Don't think we need to keep Heart of Kiran on defense, so I'm fine attacking for 2 there. And we're actually getting pretty close to dropping Ghalta, since if we can crew Heart of Kiran, that's an additional 4 power. And our opponent knows about the Vine Mare and the Ghalta, so we'll see if they have another answer to the Unsealing, if they're gonna keep creatures back, since they don't want to lose them. It's gonna be an Hour of Glory on the Llanowar Elves. Wow, that's aggressive. Okay, fair enough, so if we don't draw land, we're still not gonna be able to play Vine Mare, but we did, so we get to jam Vine Mare. And do we go face, or do we kill the Llanowar Elves? I feel like going face is fine. Also plays around Blossoming Defense. Crew Heart of Kiran. Get in for 6, put them to 8. And next turn we get to crew Heart of Kiran using Llanowar Elves and Servant of the Conduit. We'll have at least 10 power, so we get to play Ghalta for 2 mana, trigger the second mode on Unsealing, deal 4 damage to the opponent and all their creatures, and then deal the last 4 points with Heart of Kiran. And yep, that's gonna do it. So I wanna thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed this gameplay, and as always, have a nice day. I also want to thank all my patrons for supporting the channel, and you can do so yourself as well over at patreon.com/LegenVD, where you get cool rewards for supporting the channel, as well as getting us closer to our goals, where with every goal reached, we will release an additional weekly series. So if you want to see more content, Patreon is the place to go.